Hello, and welcome to My Weekend Baseball. I'm your host, Phil Estruth Harrison. You're listening to Season 2, Episode 2. Recent episodes are published in podcast format on Spotify, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio, while all episodes are available in a video version on YouTube. So you have many ways to enjoy the show. As always, thanks to Brunjo Productions in Nashville for the intro music created especially for this show. Learn more at brunjo.com. Today, we'll talk about the top center fielders in the game. Carlos Correa finally signs a contract. Tigers trade closer Gregory Soto. Red Sox and Dodgers sign each other's designated hitters. And a baseball worth more than its weight in gold. Of course, we'll also have a timely Blimerick, our blast from the past, and our team jersey of the day. So let's get right to it. Okay, we're going to start with our jersey of the day. And as longtime listeners know, I've traditionally used a cap of the day, featured a cap of the day in many of the episodes. However, after 20 episodes in Season 1, and now we're into Season 2, I'm running a little low on Major League caps. So today, we're going to go with a jersey. And today's jersey is the jersey of the Los Angeles Angels. You'll see on the front the traditional home color, the red color with the red letters outlined in black and white. And we've got the nice Angels halo over the A. So if you're watching this on YouTube, of course, you can see that. And then on the back of the jersey, you'll see this is a Mike Trout jersey, one of my favorite players, and his number on the back there, number 27. So an Angels jersey featuring Mike Trout is our jersey of the day. So this jersey was a Christmas gift along with a promise to go to at least one game in Los Angeles this coming summer. I have actually seen the Halos play a number of times before. I was counting that up earlier today, and I think I've seen the Angels at least 4 times in Seattle and one more time in Boston. In fact, the time in Boston, Mike Trout was in one of his first years. It might have even been his rookie year. And I remember him being such a threat at getting on base, and at that time, a really good base stealer. The key moment I remember in that game is Trout getting on first, walking, I think, and then stealing second and stealing third and coming home on a ground ball or something like that. But just really wreaking havoc on the Red Sox that day and being really impressed with him. I am a big fan of both Trout and Ohtani. So that's the reason for getting this jersey as a gift this year. So that is our jersey of the day. And this all fits in, it leads in with our opening story for the day, which is a recent article that appeared in MLB.com under their stories section /stories. And it's about the top 10 center fielders in the game right now. And one thing that's fascinating about the article is the presentation. I don't know if you have seen MLB stories, but they present them in a look like a futuristic baseball card. So they're in that kind of vertical format that fits your phone screen really well. And it shows you like a video clip at the top, but it looks like a baseball card the way that video clip is. You watch the little video clip and it has a little blurb below. So it's like a 21st century baseball card. I like the way those stories are written. Anyway, the top 10 center fielders in the game today, I'm actually only going to name out the first 5 that they listed, but Mike Trout is number 1. And they base this both on offensive performance and defense, and specifically call out in 2022, last season, Trout's 40 home runs and 138 OPS plus, meaning 38% above league average, along with his typically stellar defense. Now, rounding out the top 5, you'll probably want to know who those players are. Number 2 was listed as the Twins' Byron Buxton, who was excellent in 2022. And if he can stay injury-free, is going to be a top player again this year. Coming in at number 3 was Seattle rookie sensation Julio Rodriguez, known as J-Rod. At number 4, the Mets' Brandon Nimmo, who has a superb 385 career on-base percentage. That surprised me when I looked that up. That's that good. And at number 5 was another awesome rookie, the National League Rookie of the Year, Michael Harris II of Atlanta. So those are your top 5 center fielders as of right now, according to the MLB.com stories section. So those top 5 again: Mike Trout, Byron Buxton, Julio Rodriguez, Brandon Nimmo, and Michael Harris II. Okay, next up, a trivia question. So I'm going to ask you the question now. I'm going to give you some time to think about it. It's going to help to be a Tigers fan, because the question is about the Tigers, and the answer will end up being our blast from the past later in the episode. So I'm going to give you some time to think about it, and then we'll come back later in the episode. So this trivia question is about home run hitters in Tiger history. So the all-time single season record for home runs in Detroit is 58. And that was done way back in 1938 by famed first baseman slugger Hank Greenberg. So the question is, there's only one other player in Tiger franchise history to break 50 home runs in a season. Who was it? So we have Hank Greenberg, number 1. He had 58 home runs in 1938. Who was the other player, the other Tiger, to hit 50 or more home runs in a season? So I'm going to give you 4 choices so you can think about it. Was it Prince Fielder, or his dad Cecil Fielder, or Rocky Calavito, or Miguel Cabrera? Which of those 4 is the only other Tiger to have exceeded 50 home runs in a single season? And we'll have the answer for that later when we get to our blast from the past. Next up, Carlos Correa. He is now a Minnesota Twin, and finally signed a contract, actually signed it with a signature, so it's legal and binding now, at 6 years for $200 million. This has been quite a saga, and I'd have to say I'm really sorry it all went down this way. Correa was played for the Twins this last year, and he had an opt-out, which he took. The Twins actually offered him a 10-year contract. This is right at the end of the season, a 10-year contract for $285 million. And he and his agent decided that it would be better for him to test the free agent market, even though that is quite an offer. And I think it's really unfortunate that he decided to test the market, because things did not work out well at all. It's kind of embarrassing both for him and the teams. And it's like one of those, there's so many feel-good stories in MLB. This isn't one of them. So he signed I shouldn't say signed, because it never got signed. He and his agent agreed to the terms of a deal with the San Francisco Giants. 13 years, $350 million. Wow, sounded great. Giants fans were excited, as you expect. And then he took the physical. Well, there's always a physical. It's always pending a physical, right? It's like buying a house and it's pending the home inspection. Well, the physical didn't go that well. There were concerns, and because of HIPAA rules, supposedly, I don't really know if this falls under HIPAA. I think that might be lawyerly maneuvering by Scott Boras. But anyhow, they couldn't talk about what their concerns were. And then that they would have liked the Giants would have liked to keep talking, but Boris quickly pivoted because he knew that the Mets were interested. And so then the Mets offered him 1 year less, 12 years instead of 13, and 35 million less? Am I doing the math right there? 315 million instead of 350. So 1 year less, about roughly a year's less pay. And then the Mets had him take a physical, and they were concerned too. Now, this has got to be looking bad. You're the agent, and you're thinking, man, we got to do something because this guy's going to be considered damaged goods, and we're not going to get a good contract for my player or for myself. I don't know what that agent gets, but it's going to be probably somewhere in the 3 to 5 to maybe even 10% range. I'm not sure what they're getting. Now we're at a point where two teams have had concerns, and this is where it really starts to come out what those concerns were. It was with the health of his right leg, and not really the current health. I don't think there was any question that he's been playing fine and hasn't had any specific issues with this, but his right leg was surgically repaired when he was still in the minors. Although it hasn't been an issue, apparently, whatever's showing up on the MRIs or the x-rays or whatever they're using to examine that doesn't look like it will hold up well for the long term. That's got to be the fear here. And so now the Mets are thinking that they have leverage. They're thinking, hey, well, we're going to renegotiate this contract. We're going to put in some language that'll be something like, if you go on the injured list due to whatever it was that happened to your leg, if you go on the disabled list because of that, your money's not guaranteed anymore. Or it's going to be something like that. We don't know exactly what language they were proposing, but something like that. And I'm sure they thought that, well, Boris, the agent, and Carlos Correa aren't going to walk away from this. They're going to want to work this out because they know if we pass, he will be damaged goods. Well, after this went on for weeks without an actual signing of a contract, Boris got back in touch with the Twins because the Twins really had wished Correa well, but they would have liked to have kept him. Remember, they offered him 10 years earlier before the Giants and the Mets got involved, and they knew about his physicals because he'd already been on the team for a year. They had already seen the physicals. So they weren't going to get scared off in the same way. And they do eventually come to an agreement, 6 years at $200 million. And then there are additional option years. I think this contract could be up to 10 years. Some of those, I believe, vest automatically, maybe depending on how many plate appearances or games played, something like that. So it still could end up, being a significant contract. But wow, somebody wrote, and I thought this was a great comment, that for Carlos Correa, it was the most expensive physical anyone in the history of the world has ever had, because it cost him $150 million. He went from a contract of $350 million down to $200 million. It cost him $150 million. So even if he hasn't met his deductible yet for the year or his copay, that is an expensive visit to the doctor's office. Anyway, enough about that. I'm glad that Carlos Correa has signed. I actually think the Twins are a good fit for him. The city seems to appreciate him, and he seems to like it there. I think it's going to work out well. I guess my feeling is I just wish he would have accepted the 10 years and the $285 million to start with, and then he wouldn't have had to go through all this. MLB wouldn't have to go through all this. The fans in two cities, the Giants and the Mets, who maybe are feeling a little relieved, I don't know. Guess we'll see how his health does over these years. But we wouldn't have had to go through all this. So glad he's a Twin now, and I wish him the best. So good luck, Carlos, for this upcoming season. Next topic, a Tigers trade. So in our previous episode, we talked about the trade of Tigers setup man Joe Jimenez. And the Tigers had one of the few strengths this past season of 2022 was their bullpen. Jimenez was one, and he was traded. But more recently, all-star closer Gregory Soto has been traded along with first-year utility player Cody Clemens, which is son of Hall of Famer Roger Clemens. Anyhow, this is an interesting trade, and I think the Tigers really got pretty good value out of this, but let's just talk about it a little. So they're trading their all-star closer, which sounds a little scary, but if you think about it, you probably, as a non-contending team, your closer isn't really your most important thing, and we'll talk a little bit more about was he really a very good closer or not. But let's talk about who they got. So it's a Gregory Soto and Cody Clemens going from the Tigers to the Philadelphia Phillies. And the Phillies send over Nick Maton, Matt Vierling, and Donnie Sands. Now, Maton and Vierling are both utility players. They're young. They're in their early to mid-20s. And you can think of them as replacing the two Castros. If you are a Tigers fan, you know that for several years anyway, the Tigers have had both Willie and Harold Castro, and it's often hard to remember who's who because they play similar roles. They're both kind of utility guys. They've been okay. They're not especially good. They're not awful. They were released earlier in the off season. So you can think about two of these guys replacing the two Castros, Maton and Vierling. Nick Maton is a left-handed hitter. He's more likely to be used in the infield, and it was one of the things the Tigers said they wanted to do in this offseason was add a left-handed hitting infielder. Now, I'd say he's likely either going to play third base, since the Tigers really don't have a third baseman right now, or possibly they might put him at second base, where I think he's actually played more, and move Jonathan Scope, the Tigers' current second baseman, over to third, where his strong arm would be valuable. And we talked in a previous episode also about Scope's defensive statistics. He was a finalist for the Gold Glove this year, but a lot of that good defense seemed to be helped and benefited by the shift, which is going to be banned going into the new year. So maybe they'd move him to third, and then they'd have this newly acquired Nick Maton play second base. But I could see it going either way. I actually, right now, think it's more likely Maton ends up playing third, at least against right-handed pitchers. Maton has played parts of 2 seasons in Philadelphia. He's turning 26 this season, 2023, but he has less than 200 career at-bats so far. So there's not a lot to go on. His career on-base plus slugging, OPS plus, is 109, so 9% above league average. Not bad. Although so far, he's a reverse splits guy who hits left-handed pitching better, even though he's a left-handed batter. So that's the reverse thing. We'll see. I think the Tigers are likely to be playing him more against right-handed pitching. Now, Vierling, Matt Vierling, is a right-handed hitter. He's also a utility guy, but he's played more often in the outfield. He could also play infield. And he's possibility that he might platoon with his partner in the trade, Nick Maton, at third. So they could have Vierling, who's a right-handed hitter, playing against the lefties, and Maton, who's a left-handed hitter, playing against the righties. So it's possible they could both end up playing some third base. I think it's probably more likely, though, that Vierling is going to spend more time in the outfield. He has amazing speed, and with the vastness of Comerica Park, that's going to be an asset. Now, next episode, we'll talk about the Tigers changing the dimensions of the outfield. So the outfield won't be quite as vast as it used to be, but it's still a big outfield, especially in left and left center, and Vierling's speed could help out there. And as a right-handed hitting outfielder, he's going to bring balance to Detroit's lineup because most of the other Detroit outfielders are left-handed hitters. The other thing about his speed that's going to be useful, he's something like in the top 3%, or they call it the 97th percentile of base runners. So he really is quick. And I think one of the other reasons the Tigers were attracted to him is that with the rule changes now, with the slightly bigger bases, and with the limit of the number of times that a pitcher can throw over to first base, I think it's 3, right? If you throw the third time over as a pickoff attempt, and don't pick the guy off, he automatically goes to second. So bigger bases that, and you've got the pitch clock, which gives them a little less time to think about the runner. I suspect the Tigers think, hey, we're going to have some value here as a stolen base threat too, because stolen bases are going to be more important in 2023. You're going to have probably higher success rates, more attempts than you have been in recent years. So getting a fast player like Berling is going to help. He might even end up being a pinch runner sometimes in the late innings. That's enough about Nick Maton and Matt Berling. The final player in that deal that the Tigers received was AAA catcher Donnie Sands. Now, last year, he hit 308 with some power at AAA, and he has a fantastic strikeout to walk rate. He walks nearly as much as he strikes out, and the Tigers have not been very good at finding those kind of players or looking for those kind of players. The last guy I can think of who really was excellent that way was Victor Martinez, who had a good eye at the plate, controlled the strike zone, and that's what the Tigers are saying they want to do from this point forward is control the strike zone. So I think that what the Tigers gave up, they did give up some quality. They gave up Gregory Soto was a two-time All-Star, but in my view, that's partly because of the requirement that all teams have at least one player on the All-Star team. And he's arguably been the Tigers' best player the last couple of years. And he's not bad, but he's not terrific. So he had 50 career saves over his years with the Tigers in 56 opportunities. And that's a success rate of 89%, which isn't horrible. But your top tier closers are usually in the middle 90s. The other thing is, though, but he had just in his career with Detroit so far, just 8 wins to go along with 20 career losses. So he does get hammered sometimes too. And he has a career earned run average of 4.13, which, believe it or not, is actually 4% better than the league average. So he's a little above average, I guess I should say better than average with his career ERA, but it's still not an impressive ERA. He does strike out about 9 batters per 9 innings, which is very good, but he also walks 5 batters for 9 innings, which is lousy. And he has a whip, walks, and hits per innings pitched of almost 1.5, 1.49. Ouch. He puts a lot of base runners on. So I'm okay. I'm okay with him going in this trade. I think we got some quality back. These are young players who definitely have a chance to get better and contribute to Detroit's success in the future. One other thing I want to talk about just briefly is that until this trade, I had been thinking that the Tigers might be interested in Tommy La Stella from the Giants. He was recently released by the Giants. He's a left-handed hitting infielder, and he has a superb strikeout to walk ratio. He really has a good eye for the zone. And I think part of the deal is this would be his age 38 season. He did have somewhat of a down season in 2022, but he's that kind of utility player who might have been able to help the Tigers for a season, maybe 2. Next up, the Red Sox and the Dodgers sign each other's designated hitters. Now, this happened a little bit ago, back in December, but just, I don't know, not really surprising news, maybe just ironic news. JD Martinez last year was a down year for him. And I think especially later in the year, his statistics really started to drop, and people are probably worried if age is catching up with him. He'll be 35 this coming season. Anyway, last year he had 43 doubles, 16 home runs, which is a little down for him in the home run department anyway, and a 790 on base plus slugging, which is still 17% above league average offensively. So that it's not bad. But he did play DH only, played in 139 games, and he signed a contract, one-year contract for $10 million, which sounds like a lot, but it's actually just over half what he made in Boston. He was making like $19 million. in Boston. So a bit of a pay cut, but I think he'll do okay. Justin Turner, who has now been signed by the Red Sox, he'll be a few years older. He'll be 38 this year, but he can still play third base. I don't know if the Sox would use him there, maybe occasionally. Last year, he played 66 games at third base. He had 36 doubles compared to what JD Martinez's 43. Justin Turner had 13 homers compared to JD Martinez's 16. And Justin Turner's on base plus slugging was 788. Martinez's was 790. So Turner is 16% above league average. Martinez was 17% above league average. And he's going to make comparable money from what I saw on baseballreference.com with incentives. Turner would make 9.3 million this year. So 9-ish million to 10-ish million. I guess what seems so interesting to me is that it seems like an almost complete swap. You look at their stats from last year, 788 OPS, 790 OPS. Their ages are comparable. They're both kind of at the tail end of their career. They're going to be making comparable money. I don't know. Why didn't the Dodgers re-sign Turner, and why didn't the Red Sox re-sign Martinez? Why did they end up signing each other's guy? We'll see how it works out. Just thought it was interesting. Now, on to something to honk about. What is more valuable than gold? Well, I'll tell you. It's the record-setting home run ball hit by Aaron Judge. So if you'll remember, last season, in the second to last game of the year, the 161st game of the year, the Yankees lost 3-2 to the Texas Rangers. That part you probably won't remember. Played in Arlington, Texas. But the thing you will remember is that Aaron Judge passed Babe Ruth's record by blasting his 62nd home run. Actually, you could say Babe Ruth and Roger Maris's records. Babe Ruth had 60, Roger in a shortened year, and Roger Maris had 61 in the full-length 162 game season. So he passed both of them by hitting his 62nd home run. At that time, a businessman named Corey Humans, who currently lives in Dallas, 35 years old, and he happens to be vice president of a local branch of an investment firm, caught the ball. And that ball weighs about 5.25 ounces. At today's price in gold, that would be worth about $10,000. So if that baseball was made of solid gold, it'd be worth about $10,000. Not bad. However, in December at auction, that ball that Aaron Judge hit for the record-setting 62nd home run, so that will be an American League record, it sold for $1.5 million. So our local vice president at the investment firm comes out pretty good with a $1.5 million payday selling the record-setting ball at auction. But believe it or not, that is not the most expensive baseball ever sold. The most expensive baseball ever sold was a ball that was hit in 1998 by Mark McGwire, when Mark McGwire hit his 70th home run of the year. So on to our Blimerick, our baseball limerick. And today it will be an ode to that record-setting baseball hit by Aaron Judge and how amazingly valuable that ball is. A local businessman, he caught the ball, with Aaron Judge making history and all. On the auction block, it was sold for $1.5 million, more than gold. Number 62 over the wall. Finally, our blast from the past. So this year's Blast from the Past is the answer to today's trivia question. I'm going to remind you what that question was. Which Detroit Tiger is number 2 in the single season home run record for Detroit? Hank Greenberg holds a record with 58 home runs in a single season. Happened back in 1938. Which Detroit Tiger is the only other Tiger to have a 50 home run season? And we had choices of Prince Fielder, his dad Cecil Fielder, Rocky Calavito, or current Tiger Miguel Cabrera. Well, the answer is, and today's Blast from the Past is, Cecil Fielder. Cecil Fielder hit 51 home runs in 1990. And maybe that's by itself isn't so significant, but what really is interesting is kind of the history of how Fielder got there. He had played for 4 years for the Toronto Blue Jays as kind of a part-time first baseman designated hitter. And the Blue Jays knew that he had some power potential. He hadn't quite shown it yet, but he hadn't really gotten to play regularly. At that time, the Blue Jays had a lot of young guys coming in the infield, a lot of good young hitters coming up. They didn't really have a place for Fielder. Apparently, no other teams at that time were interested, as though they didn't seem to try to trade him. So what they did instead is they sold his contract to Japan after the 1988 season. Fielder played in 1989 for the Hanshin Tigers, and he was awesome. Whereas a lot of players go over there seemingly who aren't that great in the majors to make a few bucks and keep their careers going, Fielder went over there with something to prove. And that year he hit .302 with 81 runs batted in and 38 home runs in just 384 at-bats. That's about, what, 2/3 of a major league season, maybe 3/4 of a major league season. So you can imagine if he was performing at that level in the major leagues, what kind of home run power that could translate into. Coming into 1990, and this also seems a little surprising, but I also think people were wary, major league teams may have been wary of whether those kinds of stats really would translate, and he hadn't shown that kind of power in the majors, but he also hadn't played regularly. In Japan, he was playing every day. He was their starting first baseman. So coming into 1990, there were only 2 teams that expressed interest in signing them. One was the Boston Red Sox and the other, the Detroit Tigers. Fielder is quoted as saying something to the effect of, it would be hard playing in Boston. I don't know what the exact words were, but the impression I got from it was that there's a lot of pressure in Boston. Boston generally has good teams. I'm thinking he might have been concerned that he'd go back to the way things maybe were as they had been in Toronto, where he was only a part-time player. Detroit had been horrible the year before, had lost, I think, over 100 games. And Fielder saw a chance to go and play in a lower pressure situation on a team where he could play every day. And what did he do? So this is his first year back in the major leagues. Wow, did he make a name for himself that year? So let's take a look. In 1990, Cecil Fielder was just 26 years old. So coming back from 1 year away in Japan, he had 51 home runs, leading the league, 132 RBI, also leading the league, with a .592 slugging percentage and 339 total bases. All those things led the league. Of course, he also led the league in strikeouts with 182, but he offset that with 90 walks. So he made the All-Star team. He was number 2 in the MVP voting, and he won a Silver Slugger as Detroit's starting first baseman. So he came back and was amazing. He'd never done anything like that before for Toronto. The most home runs he had hit for the Blue Jays in a single season had been 14. but he had never played more than 82 games. So this is really the first time he'd gotten to play regularly. Fielder follows that up with an outstanding 1991, where he plays every single game of the season, hits 44 home runs, which again leads the league, has 133 runs batted in, which again leads the league, and he finishes second again in the MVP voting. And then even into 1992, his home runs dip a bit into the 30s, down to 35, still good power though, and he still led the league a third consecutive year in runs batted in with 124. So the Tigers really got some good value out of him. I don't remember the amount of the contract signing, and back then the amounts weren't as large, but it's something like $1 million, $1.5 million. It's not the kind of crazy sums that you see today. And over his career, Fielder played 13 years. He managed to hit 319 home runs, and he had a career 255 batting average. That's fine. 827 OPS, which is 19% above league average during his career. So he had a fine career, and of course his son Prince goes on to have a terrific, although albeit shortened career himself, and plays several seasons for Detroit. Just interesting to me that really the story that's really engaging is him going to Japan and revitalizing his career, really breaking out and coming back to the major leagues and proving that he could do it. So that's today's blast from the past, Cecil Fielder. So that's all for today, my friends. Join us next time, because honestly, what can be better than talking baseball? And in the meantime, if you have comments, questions, or ideas for an upcoming episode, you can reach me on Twitter at myweekinbball. As always, I'm your host, Phil S. Truth Harrison. We'll see you next time on My Week in Baseball.